Hi everyone. So this is student finance, and the information is, as Lou said, for 2024-25 entry. So if you'll be going to university in another year, always keep an eye on the government website for any changes. In this presentation, I'll cover the student finance package, so what's available, extra funding, the support we have here at the University of Reading, how to apply, how the repayment system works, black bullion, what to do and when, and then there are some useful links at the end as well, but I will get those emailed over to the college so that those can be circulated. So the student finance package. There are two main costs when you go to university. You will have your tuition fee, so the cost of your course per year. You can apply for a tuition fee loan, which will cover that full cost. And that bit's really simple. We'll have a look at it in more detail later on. Then the second set of costs that you might have at university will be your living costs. So things like social life, accommodation, food, travel, all of those things. You can also apply for a maintenance loan as well, and the amount you get will depend on a few circumstances, and we'll have a look at that later on as well. You can also look into extra funding. You can look into getting a part-time job at university, scholarships and bursaries, and then any support from caregivers as well. Tuition fees for 2024-25 entry will be £9,250. You do not have to pay anything up front. A tuition fee loan does not depend on household income. So if your course costs £9,250, that's what you'd get. Student finance will pay the tuition fee loan directly to the university. So that money will never make it into your bank account, and the loan is repayable, but only when your income is over £25,000 a year. And we'll have a look at repayments later on. If you'd like to check if you are eligible for student finance, you can pop to gov.uk/student-finance, and I've put that link in the chat box as well. The tuition fee loan, as we just saw, really simple. The living cost support is a little bit different. So that maintenance loan is a little bit different. The amount you will receive depends on where you live and study and your assessed household income. In 2024-25, a maximum maintenance loan amount of £10,227 is available. The maintenance loan is paid directly to the student. So students listening, it's really important that you budget. For any parents or supporters listening, having conversations about budgeting before they come to university to help them manage their money. The loan is repayable, so it would get lumped together with your tuition fee loan, and you repay that again. This is all the same, £25,000 a year. And as I say, we'll have a look at repayments later on. The maintenance loan part, so as I've said, you'll get a different amount depending on your circumstances, and these are the maximum amounts available. The higher the household income, the less support you'd be eligible for, but everybody would get something. So even if you were super rich, your young person would still get a little bit amount for their maintenance loan, which is around sort of £4,500. So for household incomes that are £25,000 and under, if they live with parents, they would get £8,610. That's the max amount, and would reduce from there the higher the household income. If they were to study outside London and not be living with parents, they would get a little bit more to account for those accommodation rent costs. If they go and study in London, they'll get a chunk more because London's so expensive to live in. And if they live and study abroad for at least one term as part of their UK-based course, there's a different amount there as well. The student finance calculator, so that link that you can see there, gov.uk/student-finance-calculator, is really handy. You can pop in all of your details on there and see the estimate of what you would get for student finance. I really recommend that you do this for two reasons. Number one, seeing that estimate. Universities have very different accommodation in different price brackets. So from there, seeing what you might get for your student finance, then which accommodation you might be better choosing. So maybe, you need to go for your shared bathroom rather than your ensuite. And the second reason is that if you have put in all of your details correctly and it's given you an amount back, but then when you actually do your student finance and you get a different amount back in your entitlement letter, then you know that you need to chase student finance because perhaps something's gone a little bit wrong there. The household income is the income of any parent, step parent, parent's partner, wife, husband the student usually lives with. So if they were to live with a foster carer or grandparent, it would still be expected that they would ask their biological or adoptive parents for that household income information. So as I've just said about the household income and what that's based on, students can be assessed as an independent if they fit into any of the categories on screen. So obviously with the household income, that's, for your typical students, but not every student will fit into those categories. So being assessed as an independent if they're over age 25 or over before the start of the academic year, married, divorced, or in a civil partnership, have care of a person under the age of 18, no living parents, are estranged from their parents, or a care leaver, cannot trace their parents, or they've supported themselves financially for at least 3 years before the start of the course. If you think that that might apply to you, then I do encourage you to look into applying as an independent student sooner rather than later, because you will need to provide just a little bit of evidence, but you'll only need to do it once. You'll do it the first time you apply for student finance, and then you wouldn't have to do it then again for your second year, your third year. I've got some examples of how the maintenance support works. So this student, they live with their family, they won't be living with parents, and they'll be studying outside of London. So they're coming to the University of Reading, let's say. The household income here is £70,000. So the maintenance loan amount that they would get would be £4,767. In this second example, this student, they live with their mom and some siblings. Again, they won't be living with parents and they'll be studying outside of London. So again, they're coming to the University of Reading. The household income here is much lower than that first example, so it's £28,000. So they would get a higher amount of £9,789. This student here, they're an independent student, they're a care leaver, not living with parents, and they'll be studying outside of London. So again, coming to the University of Reading, of course. Household income here is £0 because when they're a full-time student, that will be their full-time occupation. And they would get the full amount available to them of £10,227. So from those examples, you can sort of see which one you might relate to a little bit more, and you can see how those maintenance loan amounts really do differ. So where there is that gap between the maximum amount available and what a student would get, it is expected that caregivers would be able to fill that gap if possible. Students looking into getting part-time jobs at university and things like that. And we'll have a look at some of the extra funding available as well. For the payment process, as I said at the beginning, the tuition fee loan is paid directly to the institution. That money, that tuition fee loan, students would never see. The maintenance loan, grants, bursaries and scholarships are paid directly to the student. So again, budgeting, super important. The core student finance, the maintenance loan, is paid in 3 large lump sums throughout the year. So that first instalment is triggered by enrolment, so September, October time. The second one is after Christmas, third one usually after Easter. Between those payment dates, obviously, making that money last is a bit of a challenge. When you get your entitlement letter, it will have the dates of payment on there. Stick those in your calendar because you can work out how many weeks it is between payment, divide the lump sum by those weeks, and then you know what you have to budget per week. But also put in those dates in your calendar anyway, so that if on payment day, money hasn't made its way into your bank account, you know that you need to chase student finance and see what's happened. So as I say, there's extra funding available. So Most of this is non-repayable usually. So if you have children or an adult who is dependent on you, so this applies to students, there's a parents' learning allowance, childcare grants, and the adult dependence grant. If students have a disability, a long-term health condition, mental health condition, or a specific learning difficulty, they can apply for something called the Disabled Students Allowance, so DSA, and they can apply for this alongside their main student finance. And the support they would get depends on the individual needs. Evidence would be required to support an application for DSA. So have a look on the website, the Gov website, for more information after tonight, so that you can, get the ball rolling on that in terms of what you would need to supply for evidence before you need it. If you study overseas as part of your UK-based course, or if you undertake a medical or dental clinical placement, there's extra money available for you there for travel purposes and things. There are bursaries for certain professions, so some teacher training subjects, some NHS courses and social work. So again, if any of these apply to you, have a look online after tonight. And for any students that are leaving local authority care, you can access something called the Higher Education Bursary. Your key worker or support worker should tell you about this, but quite often they might not know about it themselves. So whoever you're in contact with, chase them for this, because it is worth up to £2,000. There are scholarships and bursaries available as well, so more non-repayable money. They could be granted by universities, they could be granted by businesses, charities. There are weird, wonderful, wacky scholarships and bursaries available, and there are lots and lots of pots of money that go unspent every year as well. So have a look on university websites, but also doing a Google search, seeing what's available. They could be granted because of academic achievement. Maybe you're going to do really well in your A levels or equivalent, and a university, business or charity wants to say well done for that. It could be subject specific. Quite often we hear of scholarships being tied to sports courses, music courses. If your household income is particularly low when you start university, most universities have bursaries available. And then certain professions, as we saw on the previous slide. Universities offer different awards and schemes, so it will be different across all of the universities in the UK. It could be money off accommodation, a reduction in tuition fees either for 1 year or the duration of your course, cash awards, a combination. They might have bursaries to help you pay for your cap and gown when you graduate. They could pay for some of your books at university. They could pay for you to travel down to the university for things like open days. There's the whole range of scholarships and bursaries that universities might offer. So do have a look at what's available. At the University of Reading, our main bursary is for low income. It's the Reading Bursary. Students who meet the eligibility criteria will be awarded a cash bursary of £1,100 per year of eligibility. It's awarded to students with a household income of less than £27,000, and you must have a home address recorded on your RICE student record. So your records with us, that falls within either Polar 4 or Tundra Quintile 1 or 2 or IMD Quintile 1 and 2. What that means is just that you live in more of a deprived area. So if you fit into those bits, we would automatically award you this bursary if on your student finance application, so your main application for the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan, at the bottom there's a box that you can tick to consent to share your household income information with third parties. Universities are third parties. If we can see your household income information and we see that it's less than £27,000, and then we can also check your postcode with us, we would automatically give you this. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to fill in any forms or anything. We do have a wide range of other bursaries. So a couple more examples. We've got bursaries for care experienced and estranged students, for students going on placements. We have a digital support fund. Obviously having internet connectivity and laptops really important in this day and age at university. Commuter travel bursaries. We have bursaries for vouchers for students to buy books, pre-entry travel bursaries, pre-applicant bursaries for disabled students, and there's many more that you can find on our website. So the link is reading.ac.uk/essentials/money_matters/bursaries-and-awards. But if you can't remember that, don't worry. If you just Google University of Reading bursaries, the link will come up there. And we also have some scholarships available as well. So for scholarships, you do have to apply for those, and you'll be competing against other students for the scholarship. So for that, again, if you just Google University of Reading scholarships, that page will come up and you can see which ones are available and if there are any that might tie to the department you'll be studying with. It's a really, really good idea to get a part-time job at university, and you'll find that a lot of students do have a part-time job at university. Obviously, it's great for your CV, getting extra skills, building up your confidence, meeting other people, but obviously that financial element, getting extra cash is really useful as well. You can find out about student job fairs, jobs at job fairs at university. So alongside Freshers Week, there might be an employment fair where you can go and speak to different people there. There are summer and holiday jobs available as well. Sorry, I think I can hear some background noise. Is it just me that can hear it? No, is that gone? Okay. So there are summer and holiday jobs available as well. So as particularly for students who would go on to do something like primary education or nursing, your course is already going to be really demanding and you'll be on placement quite a bit. So getting a part-time job during term time will be near impossible. So you might just want to work over the summer holidays, over Christmas, things like that. You will have the chance to work for the university that you go to as well. So you'll have the chance to work as a student ambassador, working at things like open days, working at campus visits when students come to visit from different schools. You might go and attend careers fairs. You might go and work at UCAS exhibitions, writing blogs for the university website, a whole manner of things. And you'll also get the chance to work for your students' union as well. I really strongly recommend getting a job for your university if you can, because your university will be the most understanding employer. We know that your full-time priority is your degree. That's what you're paying for. If you go and work elsewhere in retail, in a shopping centre, your manager there might not be as understanding. And typically contracts working for a university are 0 hours, and you just say yes to a shift when it suits you. So if you know that you've got a coursework deadline or exams coming up, then you don't have to say yes to any shifts. Do find the balance, prioritize your university work. For some students, it will be absolutely fine for them to work 16 hours a week. For some students, they might find, 4 hours a week is enough for me. It's really up to you. If you are working loads and loads of hours in your part-time job because of financial reasons and it's having a detrimental effect on your study, please speak to your university. Universities have hardship funds, and you might have missed out on some other funding that you didn't know about and you could be eligible for. So do have a chat with the university that you go to. So how do you apply for student finance? That main student finance, the tuition fee loan, the maintenance loan. If you were coming to university this September, you'd apply now. If you're coming next year, you'll apply this time next year. A deadline is always usually around the end of May. For an application for student finance, you will need to have ready your valid UK passport details, birth or adoption certificate, or other identity and residency evidence documents, your national insurance number, and if you've already lost the letter that had that on, or you don't know where it is, you don't have any payslips or anything with it on, contact HMRC ASAP. Your UK bank account details, please don't worry if it's not a student account. You can just change those details later on. And then I'll say this many times throughout the presentation. When you put your university and course details in, you just use your preferred choice out of your 5. You do not need to wait for a confirmed place. By the time student finance applications open and when you need to get it in by, you probably won't have had all your offers back from universities, and you probably definitely will not have made your firm and insurance choices. It doesn't matter, just get your application in for student finance. The most important bits are that they check your eligibility, so your passport details and your residency and all that, and also the household income information. The bank account details and the university and course details, you can just update that later on, easy peasy. You apply online. It only takes around 30 minutes if you have all of those bits to hand, and you apply at gov.uk/student-finance. And all of the information that I'm covering in this presentation can be found at that link as well. A bit of information for parents. Once your child has applied for student finance, you will be emailed a link within 24 hours to create an online account for you to provide information about your income from the previous tax year. So if a student was coming to university this September, the previous tax year would be 2022 to 23. If your income of the tax year that they're going to university will be at least 15% less, you change jobs, you've been made redundant, whatever it might be, you can give your income details for that current tax year instead of the previous tax year. You would also need your national insurance numbers, details of your household's taxable income, your personal taxable income information as well, and details of other child dependents. HMRC check all of that information, and they may ask for further evidence of your income if it doesn't match their records, and of your marital status. Do apply early for student finance. So, if you're going this year, applying now. If you're going next year, making sure that you apply as soon as applications open. Every year, thousands of students apply late, and it means that they don't have, all of the money that they need for when they start university. It takes at least 6 weeks to process an application. You apply online again at gov.uk/student-finance. You do not need a confirmed place at university to apply. Just apply with your first choice, your favourite out of your 5, and just change those details later on if you need to. Make sure any evidence and information needed to support your application is supplied right first time, and read, understand and agree to the loan terms and conditions. So how do repayments work? So the repayment system at the moment is Plan 5. You would start to repay a small amount back once you've left university, and you get a year's tax grace. So let's say you graduate in the summer, you get a year's tax grace until the next April. If by that next April your income is over the threshold, which would be £25,000, you would start to make small repayments back. You repay 9% of your income above the threshold. Deductions are made from your pay through the HMRC tax system, so through your payslip. If your income at any point falls below the threshold, those repayments would stop, and any outstanding loan balance is written off 40 years after entering repayment. So what does this look like? The higher your salary, the higher your income, the higher that monthly repayment. If we look at the example just at the bottom of that slide, if your income, so you've had the year's tax grace, if at any point after leaving university within those 40 years, your income is above that threshold, so for example, £28,000, 9% is deducted from £3,000 because that's the difference between the threshold and your salary. And then your monthly repayment works out to a teeny tiny £22.50. So, for the young people listening, if you've never seen a payslip before, you don't actually keep all of the money that you earn anyway. It's quite depressing. So, you will have lots of other deductions made, pension, national insurance, things like that. And on a salary of £28,000, those deductions will be triple figures, if not close to. And then your student loan repayment is much smaller. So, that isn't going to be the one that you're worrying about leaving your payslip every month. If you want to look at repayments in more detail, you can go to src.co.uk/repayment. So black bullion, as I've mentioned, budgeting, really important at any point in life. But, if you're coming to university and it's the first time that you've been managing your money, then especially important at that time. We've partnered with Black Bullion. So if you pop to moneyreadyforuni.com, there's learning courses filled with short videos on there, quizzes, tools, really helps prepare you financially for university life. It covers things like student funding, the cost of living on campus, estimating your loan repayments. And there's also a parents guide on there. It's completely free to use, so please do check it out. What to do and when. Take a look at that Money Ready for Uni course. Apply to your Student Finance Authority as early as possible. You can also sign up to their mailing list so you can be notified when applications open. So if you're not coming this year, sign up to the mailing list. If you are coming to university this year, apply for Student Finance now. Prepare your information and documentation required. So those bits that I mentioned, your passport details and so on. Check with the department you'll be studying with to see if they have any bursaries or scholarships. If you think that you're eligible for any of the extra funding that I mentioned, please have a look into that as well. You can have a look at our Money Matters page. We've got loads of advice on there. There's articles about managing your money, costs and budgets, loads of useful tips. And because your student finance is triggered by enrolment, it might take, sort of 3 to 5 working days to make its way into your bank account. So it might not be available on day one of your course. So just making sure that you've got a bit of money just to cover that first week or so. So to recap, it's important to make the right university and course choice. You get the length of your course plus 1 year minus previous years of study. So if you study somewhere for 2 years and you decide, oh, actually, I want to do something else and start a degree again, you've already used up 2 years worth of your funding. So making sure that you go to open days, you go to visit days, any questions that you have, you email universities, you ring them, you get in contact with them, however that's possible, and just making sure that you're making the right choice for you. And if you do need to take a gap year, then that's always a good choice as well. Tuition fee loans are available to all eligible students. So as I say, you can check if you're eligible at the Gov website. If your course costs £9,250, you will get £9,250 and that money's paid directly to the uni. Future repayments are linked to your income, not what is owed. So if student A borrowed £50,000, student B borrowed £30,000, they both leave university at the same time and they both earn the same amount, their monthly repayments would also be exactly the same. Research all finance available, especially the bursaries and scholarships, any additional funding. Apply online and on time. And to say again, there is no need to wait for a confirmed place before applying for your student finance. Just choose your favourite university out of your 5, stick that on there. If that changes, you can just update it later on. Check all of your details are correct before submitting your application. You're applying for money from the public purse, so just checking that everything is right on there. So some useful links. So you know that you've gone to the right place. This is what the Gov website looks like. So all of the information I've covered is on there. And this is where you would apply for student finance as well. So it's gov.uk/student-finance. This is what the student finance calculator page looks like. Again, so you've gone to the right place. And it's gov.uk/student-finance-calculator. Follow them on social media. They do post good updates, reminders. They break down the information regarding student finance. You can also contact them through their social media as well during office hours. They do also have a YouTube page, which is really handy because there's short videos on there explaining student finance. This is what the campaign page looks like at the moment. It might change, but if you go to studentfinance.campaign.gov.uk, you can sign up to their mailing list. And then a few other links, the student room, it's got handy information about student finance, but also all of the things relating to university. And there's also a forum on there, so you can speak to other students at university, get some tips from them. The UCAS website also has all of the information regarding student finance on there. If you would like to find out more information about the University of Reading, if you pop to our virtual events page, we have subject tasters. You can find out when our open days are, which, by the way, are June 14th and 15th. If you wanted to see us, if you know, you're not coming to university this year and you want to visit. And YouTube videos as well. We have the student finance video. We also have other videos produced by our students about various things regarding university. You can email our student funding team at studentfunding@reading.ac.uk about specific questions regarding the University of Reading and funding. The Money Ready for Uni link there again as well. Thank you so much for listening. Are there any questions? I didn't see any go into the chat box just yet.
There aren't any at the moment, Gemma, but we'll let anybody who's listening, please do type any of your questions in there. And perhaps I can bring yourself and Amar just to perhaps some of the questions that were asked beforehand, which might be useful for anybody online whilst they're thinking of other questions. You've covered, I think, when you start applying for a student loan, Gemma. Can I just ask, can you just explain what happens if somebody withdraws from a course and doesn't actually in the end want to go on to university?
So after they've already started, or
no, sorry, if they've applied for finance but then actually they decide they don't want to go on to university,
they can just cancel it. So if a student was even thinking, oh, I've not even applied in this cycle, I might go through clearing, you know, so on and so forth, I might take a gap year, still apply for student finance now, just so that it's in place if you need it, and if you don't, just cancel it. You know, it's better to have it there just in case, and, you know, cancel it over the summer if your circumstances change.
That's really helpful, thank you. There's been a couple of things that asked about in the chat there about interest rates. Will anyone be talking about interest rates, and can the repayment rate of 9% change during the 40-year term?
So interest rates at the moment are set at RPI. It can change. If you go to the SLC link, so I think it was slc.co.uk/repayment, you can have a look at the interest information in more detail on there. I don't know if Amar wants to comment on that as well.
I've just answered that question in the chat room, actually, and I'm just working through some of the questions that have come through. So can the repayment rate of 9% change during the 40-year term? So the 9% is the difference between your threshold and what you're actually earning. So if you're earning a higher amount, what happens with the repayment threshold, it will start to rise from April 2027 in line with inflation. So the rate of threshold repayment will continue to rise as well. So if you're on that particular plan, which would be plan 5, no, the 9% doesn't change, because that's the set rate for that plan of at which point you start to make a repayment of your income above the threshold rate. So if your income doesn't rise, which a lot of public sector income doesn't, and the rate of inflation repayment threshold continues to rise, and your salary drops below the repayment threshold, your repayments effectively stop.
That's great. Thank you, Emma. Thank you very much indeed. Just out of interest, there's a question there about a sandwich course, so 4 years. So if there was a year abroad or a year in an industry placement, can you just explain how that might work, please,
Yes.
Gemma?
Oh, sorry. Sorry,
No,
Gemma, go for it. I apologise, Gemma, go for it.
No, I was just going to say that for a sandwich year, the tuition fee is usually a lot lower than usual. But regarding the finance, Amar, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so with regards to any study placement years, we fund based on a maximum of either 15 or 20% tuition fee that the university can charge, as long as the placement year that you're undertaking is part of and accredited by the university, not that you choose yourself 1 year or halfway through a year to drop out of the university and go and study with another university somewhere. We do not fund that. So any placement year has to be part and parcel of the undergraduate course that you're studying as part of the full course. There was another question there. If I live in England and want to attend a Welsh university, do I apply to Welsh Student Finance? No. If you're an English resident, Student Finance England is where you apply for funding for the tuition fee, whatever the tuition fee rate in Wales will be, and we will pay that rate on your behalf, and your maintenance loan will be based on the elsewhere rate of living as opposed to the London rate, because obviously you've gone to a devolved authority in Wales.
That's really helpful. And there was an additional question that was asked beforehand about applying for Welsh Student Finance. If you're studying Wales but are from England, and I'm presuming from what you've said that you apply for England through England's student finance, nothing to do with Welsh, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. That's great. The 2 years actually working postgraduate in Wales, there was a question about that, and I wondered if you knew anything about that, please, as well.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. There's a scheme where if you study in Wales and agree to work in Wales 2 years postgraduate, that actually they do pay some your study fees. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Is that for nursing and medicine?
Sorry, yes, that's an NHS course.
Yeah.
So
NHS.
If an English student decides to go and study in Wales for an NHS or an allied health professional program and wish to benefit from the NHS bursary as well as the maintenance loan from Student Finance England, the bursary is paid by Student Finance Wales, but you have to agree to stay in Wales for 2 years, work for the NHS in Wales for that 2 years, and then once that 2 years is over, you can then relocate wherever you so wish.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Okay, I'm just seeing have we got any other questions in the chat. I'm just checking that. Let's just have a look. Does the 25,000 salary threshold change year on year?
It will increase. I've just answered that. Sorry, Lou. I was just
sorry,
typing away.
you.
No,
Thank you.
Because this is the new Plan 5, which was just introduced in 23-24, so we're only into the first year of it. Previously, it was all Plan 2 for many years. The threshold is fixed at the moment until April 2027. So anybody starting university in 2024, the repayment threshold for those students on a traditional 3-year degree will actually increase, because when they finish university, let's say they finish a 3-year conventional degree in April 2027, we give them that nearly 1 year grace period before they enter into a repayment due date by April 2028. I'm not an economist, and if you were to speak to Martin Lewis, he'll probably work it out for you, but I would imagine the repayment threshold will be closer to about £27,500 at that point.
Thank you. What if a student leaves a course and doesn't finish? Can you explain that as well? That's very helpful, I think, for everybody to hear, because that does happen.
It does. Gemma, would you like to take that, or would you like me to answer that?
You go for it, Amar.
Thanks, Gemma.
Save my voice.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think that's a very important question, and it's something that I, as the regional manager, get a lot of email queries from universities on and by disgruntled students. The first thing a student needs to do is, if they decide to withdraw, suspend their studies, or even drop out of university, they must inform their university, the course director, that that's the decision that they've chosen to make. The university has a fees and funding support team, fees, funding and registrar team, and what they need to do is inform SLC immediately that that student has withdrawn from their studies. We then suspend all funding to that student and to the university. Unfortunately, what happens is that students don't inform their university and then inform rather late that they've dropped out. And because we have an agreement in place with universities to continue paying tuition fees, but also maintenance loans, that student can continue to then receive a maintenance loan, but then go into what's known as a grant or a loan overpayment. And we can demand that money back immediately. There is no repayment policy on it, because that money should not have been given to the student because they had withdrawn and suspended from their studies. So it's extremely important that where a student decides that university is no longer for them, or because of some personal reasons, they're suspending or withdrawing or dropping out of their studies, there are really 2 phone calls they need to make. One to their university course director and let them know, and also let the fees and funding team know, but also to the student loans company on 0300 100 0607, which is the customer support line, and let us know immediately that they have suspended or dropped out of their studies, and we will suspend their student funding at that moment in time.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Ahmad. Thank you very much indeed. There are a few more questions in the chat. I don't know if you can get to those. They are quite specific. If there are some that we don't answer, we'll go through those and make sure that we actually supply those perhaps when we circulate the recording, and we'll make sure that we do. Thank you for that. What I would say as well is a lot of the information that Gemma gave out, which obviously is a superb sort of representation, I think, of the University of Reading as well. And I would recommend that June the 14th and 15th, anybody who is looking at universities for the following year goes and visits all of their choices and explores those. But certainly the University of Reading, I know, Gemma, we would be really glad that students would have been and visited yourselves on those dates. But it is really important to go and have a look at the universities. That's a general note rather than just on finance, because actually deciding on the universities is really important. And just as Amar said, because sometimes students withdraw from those and then want to start another university, both the finance, certainly the finance is wrapped up in all of that decision making. And it's really important that you get the right university and that you go and visit your insurance choice as well. So you make 5 choices of university if you so wish, up to 5. And you should go and visit as many of those as possible so that you're making the right choice in the first place. And certainly, as I said, visiting your insurance choice as well, if at all possible, because it is really critical to make those right decisions at the beginning. Otherwise, things like the finance become an issue for some students and parents at that stage. Is there anything that anybody would like to add at the moment? I can see that we've got some things coming through on the chat that Amar is delving into there. Thank you. I haven't got any further questions on here, but I am aware that there are still some coming through. Gemma, is there anything else that you'd like to add from your knowledge of some of the questions that have come through?
Yeah, so another thing to add is just that you would apply for student finance every single year of study. So you do it once for your first year, then you do it again, then you do it again until you graduate.
Thank you. And one of the questions that's come through actually was interesting about the different costs usually expected at university. Perhaps not just the most obvious ones, but you talked about budgeting. And actually, I think it's really important that students think about that. You know, before they go to university, setting up a bank account. We had Barclays on site the other day, but there are all of the banks in Stourbridge and other places where most of our students live, although of course a lot of those are now online banks as well. But it's really important, isn't it, to make sure that students understand how to budget. And I think there's quite a bit of information available about that. I don't know if you've got any recommendations on that, Gemma.
Yeah, so having a look at that Money Ready for Uni course is really, really helpful. So, you know, do that over the Easter holidays, summer holidays, whenever's best for you. But then also speaking to students at open days or visit days or through Uni Buddy, asking them what they do, because they will have more up-to-date knowledge of, you know, the very specific ways that they budget at their specific university. So for example, you know, when I was a student at university, the Bullring would do lock-ins, and that means that only students could access the Bullring at that time, and you would access lots and lots of different discounts, which obviously, if you don't need anything, don't buy anything because you're spending money that you don't need to spend. But if you were looking specifically to get, you know, a new pair of trainers, or you need to update your laptop, and you'd be saving money by getting things with a discount, then it's really good for that. Getting a totem card. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on.
No, carry on. Sorry, Gemma.
Getting a totem card, that gets you access on the high street, restaurants, clothes shops. You could also use student beans, which I imagine a lot of students are already using, and uni days. Those are really good. You know, if you could wait a bit longer and wait for sales, waiting for Black Friday sales and things before you purchase anything that you've had your eye on. And when you do live in student accommodation, you do not all need to have a bottle of washing up liquid next to the sink. You know, share the cost of that, share the cost of other things, bulk buy. What a lot of our students do is a shop altogether, an online shop. So the minimum spend for a lot of supermarkets is usually, you know, 40-50 pounds. So they'll all club together, they'll all do an online shop together, so that they're saving, you know, the money, having, if they, you know, got a taxi to get all of this shopping home, because, you know, if you're just getting a few bits and bobs here and there, you know, getting on the bus is fine. But if you've got to buy really heavy things and huge bags of rice and all your loo roll, and, you know, that's quite heavy to get from a supermarket all the way to your student accommodation, which could be up a few flights of stairs. So getting an online shop with your flatmates is a really good idea.
That's super. And when do they have to pay for accommodation and booking accommodation?
You would have to pay a deposit for accommodation. You would only apply for accommodation at your firm choice university, and you would do that obviously once you've made your firm and insurance choices, and when that specific university opens applications for their accommodation. And when you book it, you would have to pay usually a £250 deposit, and then the first payment for that first term of accommodation would typically align with the first payment of your student finance. And if it doesn't, for any reason, you know, if those dates don't match, you can set up a payment plan with the accommodation. So that means that you would just pay a little bit for when they want that first payment to go through. So you might just pay the first week or the first month, and then you'll just pay the rest once your student loan payment makes its way into your bank account.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Lou,
sorry.
Do you mind?
Yes.
Do you mind if I just chip in? I noticed a parent had asked a question earlier in the chat, and we sort of missed it with others that came in. It was just to want to say, if students don't get the full maintenance loan, how do parents know how much to subsidise their child? And I know in a way that's how long is a piece of string, really, but I wondered if there was some advice that Gemma might be able to provide on that, just in terms of how parents can help their children's budget.
So the best thing to do, so the biggest cost out of a student's maintenance loan would be their accommodation. So accommodation prices now, you know, you are looking at sort of like 5 to 8 grand a year, depending on where that student goes to university, and depending on whether they opt for a shared bathroom ensuite. So that is a really huge chunk of money for a student to pay across an academic year. For the students that are getting the maximum maintenance loan amount, that would cover that accommodation payment. For the students that are getting the minimum amount, it, you know, obviously wouldn't. So when they have an idea of which university they want to go to, have a look at the accommodation prices, and then you can sort of cost up, right, well, we've done the student finance calculator, this is how much they might be getting. So let's say, you know, they'll be getting 5 grand. You've looked at accommodation, okay, that's going to be 7 grand. So you already know there's a 2 grand deficit there that's going to have to be made up somehow. So whether that's through extra funding, part-time work, and caregiver support. And then thinking about, you know, food, and with food, as I've already said, you know, sharing some of those costs and bulk buy-in with flatmates and things. And obviously we're not going to be shopping at Waitrose, are we, if we're a student? So making sure we're going to Aldi, Lidl, Asda, and you know, getting them perhaps at home to come along if they've never done a shop before, so that they can see how things cost, and also choosing the non-branded items, that will save them a chunk. So in a typical basket, if you're choosing branded items, you know, your bread, your milk and your branded cereals and things, that might come to £40. If you buy your non-branded, it could reduce it by half and be £20. So thinking about those things, and then honestly, it's really just what a student spends money on. Some students are very frugal, they don't really go out and they don't buy takeaways, and then some students, you know, they're forever spending money. So again, it will really depend on the individual student, but having these chats about budgeting will not only help them at university, but it will set them up really well for life as well. And you know, getting them to speak to the students at universities, again, super helpful, because they will know the best places around campus to get cheap food, you know, when the student nights are and things like that as well.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And thank you, Faith. That's a helpful question. I wonder, Amar, if you have anything that you would like to add. We've just got a few minutes left, and if you've got anything that you feel that would be really good for everybody to know at this stage, thinking about applying for this year's finances, and anything that they should be aware of.
Thanks a lot, Lou. I would just like to reiterate what Gemma has quite comprehensively covered already, but obviously from a student loans perspective, our key thoughts right now and messages are always around early applications and right first-time applications, not only from the student, but obviously those that we consider sponsor incomes, i.e. household income, because I think one of the dangers that often occurs every year, and I don't mean to get into data as such, but only 68% of students for their first year undergraduate start apply on time. So that's 32% of students every year for the last 6 years that apply late. And what happens is that they tend to apply during clearing, which is when A-level results or BTEC results are published. And they do that between the mid-August until the end of September. Now, at that point, the student loans company has 1.6 million applications that we have to process. So our assessors are not 1.6 million. We don't have that many assessors, and we're keen to try and get all the maintenance loans and the tuition fees out to the universities on time for those students who have met the deadline. So where students apply between August and September because they fear that they may not be going to university or they've changed their mind, that application at that point is considered a late application. And we deal with cases every year where students, what their expectations of their first few weeks at university is going to be, attending the freshers' fairs, making new friends, settling into the university, and yet their maintenance loan is not in place, and so they do experience hardship. The student finance application is a free application. It doesn't cost anything on gov.uk/student finance. We do not release any money to students, even though there is a misnomer around the name calling it a student loan. We only release the money once the student have actually started, and we receive what's known as a confirmation of attendance from the university. So it's known as a COA. And we generally release that money within 3 working days, which is usually the first Wednesday in the October, once the student has confirmed to us that they're on campus and have attended their course. So get your application in early. Don't worry about what you may have heard, the myth, the stories, what your goldfish has told you. The truth of it is that you apply early. It's a simple application. It's data entry. It takes no more than 12 minutes and 49 seconds is the fastest we've ever had. So 15 minutes of your social media life, and I applied that to the students. Give up 15 minutes of your social media life. You can do it on your iPhone, you can do it on your iPad, you can do it on your laptop, your PC. That's all it takes. is to get your student finance application submitted to us so that we can start doing the assessment process to ensure that not only your tuition fee goes to the right university, in this case, University of Reading, and your maintenance loan is in place for you when you actually start university, and that you are not having the poor experiences that you often read about in the press and the social media for students who did not apply on time and then blame everybody else.
Thank you, Emma. There was a question as well about student finance and not paying interest, and I'm aware that there are obviously some issues around that for some students and families. It is quite a broad issue, but have you got something that you can just impart, Emma, just to anybody concerned about the ethics of paying interest?
Of course, and this question relates more to the Muslim demographic, and it's something that we pick up quite a lot. So I think what's most important here is that for anybody that progresses to university, that they fully research how the student loan system actually works. Under the previous Plan 2 system, the student loan was based on what we call an RPI and up to 3% fixed interest. So retail price index as a measure of how well the country is performing economically, plus up to 3%. Under Plan 5, it is retail price index plus 0%. So the actual physical hard interest has been removed from Plan 5, and the interest that is applied to Plan 5 is an inflationary measure. It's an increase or decrease based on whether RPI goes up or down. So it's RPI plus 0% interest. But for those students that may well be considering university this year, and this may well be an issue for them if they believe it goes against their religious beliefs or morals or ethics, the government has been in consultation for over 23 years. That's as long as I've been doing this job, not only with the Student Loans Company, but with universities and colleges. There will be another product that is introduced in 2026. So in 2 years' time, that will be compliant within the Muslim faith if they wish to use that as a product to go to university, and it will be known as alternative student finance with 0% RPI and 0% interest measurement as well. Now, the government has proposed it for a 2026 launch. We are still awaiting final confirmation of that, but there is more information on gov.uk/alternative student finance if you want to have a look at that.
Thank you very much indeed. That was really succinct, Emma. Thank you. But hopefully it helps allay some people's, just concern about that, and they can read more about that. Thank you very much indeed. Got a question there. Is it necessary to have a student bank account, or will a current account be okay? Any bank account.
Any bank account. Obviously, the benefit of having a student bank account is that you usually get better deals. So you would have an overdraft, which, for emergencies could be quite handy. And they usually might have like perks and things like a free rail card. So getting a student bank account, for those reasons is great. But whatever bank account you want to stick on your student finance application is fine.
Brilliant, that's lovely. And there was a question which I was just answered in the chat, but you can save and go back to your application, but certainly make sure that that's completed within the deadline. I'm going to try and wrap things up now. We're coming up just to the hour. There've been lots of really interesting questions. The presentation was absolutely superb. Thank you, Gemma, as well, because that gave so much detailed information. And of course, the bursaries and scholarships are something you mentioned at the University of Reading, and as you said, it's wise for all students and parents to investigate those at whatever university, because all of those are really, really important. So thank you very much for pointing that out, and all of the other details. Amar, thank you very much indeed as well for being there, for answering all those wonderful questions that certainly I wouldn't have been able to have answered. Faye has been in the background putting all of those things on the chat. What I would say is, to anybody who's still online, if you do have any questions, please email careers@keds.ac.uk, which I know that Faye has put in the chat. We will circulate the video and the presentation, and I think Gemma has got a short YouTube video for us to also circulate. There are lots and lots of questions, I know, perhaps that are pertaining to particular visas and things like that as well. And we can put you in touch with the necessary people, and there is plenty of help and support through Student Finance England as well. So thank you very much to everybody for this evening. I hope it's been useful, and we look forward to seeing students, if you have any queries, in the Careers Hub after Easter as well. Thank you very much to everybody for joining us this evening, and thank you again, Gemma and Amar. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Take care.
Bye.
Good night
Thanks,
to
Gemma.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.